Hi, I'm Tracey L Fisher, a reentry point of view, unapologetic. I'm sitting here with Judge Sierra Street. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Mr. Fisher.
That's good. I'm glad you're here. Relax. You just with 2.2 million people. Ain't about nothing. That ain't about nothing right there. Relax, calm down. Plus, you a black woman.
That's true.
That's power.
That's true.
That's
Okay.
power. That's what's missing in the community right now. So I'm here to talk to Judge Sierra Street about a few things. The first thing I'm gonna talk to you about is this. Before I even do that, elevator speech. Let my audience know who you are.
Okay, I am Sierra Thomas Street. I'm a judge on the Court of Common Pleas here in Philadelphia. I was elected in 2013, so I've been on the bench for approximately 7 years. I am assigned to the criminal division, and that is where I've been for 7 years. I am currently the supervising judge of the lead supervising judge of the indicting grand jury program, and I'm just coming off of being the chair of the National Bar Association Judicial Council Clifford Scott Green chapter here in Philadelphia.
Wow. So you done seen a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Yes.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, right? As far as criminal division, right? How do you feel about the state of Philadelphia right now with our youth coming in front of you and judges like you with crimes that they really shouldn't be caught up in, but the way that society is right now?
Okay, well, I am in the adult division, so I see adults. But we know that young adults are sort of still our youth.
Right.
So if they're 18, 19, they're going to be in my courtroom.
Right.
But we know that their development is not the same as somebody who's 30
Right.
or 40, right? So even though they're all adults, I do think of them differently depending on their age group. Obviously, right now, Philadelphia and the entire country and the world are going through a pandemic. Our city in particular has become pretty dangerous, even more dangerous than normal. During the pandemic, we've seen our crime rate, particularly our homicide rate, go up. A lot of our services have been shut down because of the pandemic. The courthouse is limited in function because of the pandemic. But the criminal division is one of the divisions that is doing the most work. I myself did a jury trial during the pandemic. I've done several bench trials. I try to bring people in, but because of the pandemic, the building is sort of closed off. So I think all of that has some effect on what we're seeing going on in our city, unfortunately. I think it's just a very dangerous environment. And when I let people out of jail right now, I'm telling them, be careful. You do know what's going on out there. I mean, normally you could tell me better than I could tell you, but right now I'm going to tell you that you're going to be on your own when you get out of jail right now, and it's going to be very dangerous on the streets of Philadelphia.
Because there's no resources available right now.
The resources
that
are
would
limited.
normally be there for them. I
Correct.
understand exactly what you're
And
saying.
people are stuck in their neighborhoods, even more so than they normally are, because
Right.
people who are underprivileged are stuck to a certain degree anyway. But when you have services, when you have probation, or when you have, the services going, sometimes you get a chance to get out of your neighborhood, right? And you have programs. But right now, people are pretty much stuck where they're at.
Where they at. I get you. And being underprivileged and so forth, and Philadelphia being #1 in poverty right now, and poverty being one of the biggest things that comes out of crime come out of poverty. And the adults that comes into your courtroom, literally, right, standing in front of you, and you using your common sense, street smarts and everything, and you know this person is in front of you because of poverty. How do you handle that? Because you still got to be legal. How do you handle that?
You still have to follow the law, but of course I can't ignore what I know or what I see or what I hear.
Right.
And so every case is different. If every case was the same, we wouldn't need a judge. So
Exactly.
judges are elected to use their discretion. And I think that the people of Philadelphia in particular elected me because I would use my discretion, my knowledge of the community. I've tried to stay involved in the community. I come from the community, so you can't ignore that. And I think all judges should be aware of the communities that they preside over. So if you're presiding over people who come from a certain community, but you've never been there, that's you're starting at a loss.
Right.
So my knowledge of the community and what's going on, of course, that plays into effect. That's going to affect my decision, and it should, because I have discretion. If I didn't have I'm not a robot, and none of us are. So that's not what we were elected to do.
Exactly.
I have to use my discretion.
Do you have a determined, defined moment in your life where you said, you know what, I want to be a judge? Do you remember that moment?
It's
Or
hard
is
to
it
say.
like a bunch of stuff that came together?
I mean, I can just say that growing up, people always said, oh, you should be an attorney, because I always had a smart mouth as a child, one of those be quiet, stop talking kind of children. So my mother's a nurse, and she always helped people. The family wanted to, anytime somebody was sick, we didn't have any doctors in our family, they would call her, and they still do. So I wanted to be that kind of person, but I was like, I don't know if I have the bedside manner to go into medicine. So I went into law, and I still wanted to help people. So I've always been on the public interest side of law, and that's the side where you don't necessarily make a lot of money. It's not in the firm,
I
or
understand that.
right. So you're helping people, and I've always, my family was involved in criminal or family law. So I wanted to be able to help my family, and those are the areas that I concentrated in, and also the communities that I lived in. Even went to school in college and law school, and so that was the law. So then I became a public defender at some point while I was a lawyer. And then I was in front of a lot of judges. Just one of the judges that you had in here recently, Judge Paula Patrick, was one of the judges I was before, a young black judge at that time. And I would look at them and say, okay,
I can do this.
Maybe I can do this.
That's right.
And then so, you want to be able to pay your bills at some point too. So as a public defender, that wasn't necessarily the best job to do that. But I wanted to marry all of my interests together. So I wanted to be able to help people, I wanted to be able to pay my law school loans back. I, wanted to continue the work that I had always done. And even outside of being a public defender, I always volunteered and did things around reentry, around voters' rights, and for people. I even went into the jails before I was a public defender to register people to vote. And this is like 15 years back.
Right.
When a lot of people didn't know
Right.
that people could vote.
Right, exactly.
And here, people who were convicted or people who were not convicted yet but still in jail could vote, and people weren't aware. And so I always did that kind of work. That's what I was drawn to. Also, mentoring children is something that I always did before I became a judge. So all of those things, mentoring, reentry, as a judge, I get to do all of that.
Right, absolutely.
Yep.
There's no reentry without a judge. I'm just letting you know that's hand in hand. When you was talking about voting rights, and a lot of people don't know, so I explain real quick for them. When you are awaiting trial, or you in the county and you haven't been convicted of a felony at the time, you are still able to vote. You can vote absentee ballot though. So that's what the judge was alluding to right there, But once you're convicted and you sent upstate or the federal jail, whatever, then you can't vote. But in Pennsylvania, once you're released, you can vote again. You do have your voting rights back for you to be able to vote again. So now we have that clear. So let me ask you this. With the shooting of Mr. Wallace, right, and the way the community reacted, and first of all, let me get your thoughts on that. The shooting of Mr. Wallace.
I would say I don't think there's a pending matter against the police, so I'll speak about it on a limited basis because there could be charges. In that case, a judge should not be speaking on the matter. I will just say this, that the officers looked like they were young and inexperienced. They looked like they were scared. That all played into their decision making. They were maybe not equipped properly for the situation that they were dealing with. So those are the things that, to me drove the decision.
From observation.
Right. The unfortunate conclusion that came about. And I think it's very unfortunate because that obviously could have been handled very differently.
Now, this is one of the ideas I came up with, and I would like to pursue because I have a degree, as far as being a psychiatrist and mental health specialist. And what happened was, I think Philadelphia should have certain individuals on call in each section. So when that took place, when that call go out, it should also go out to say, like with Kevin Horn. Let's say he has an organization that deals with mental health and a person having an episode. They should arrive the same time with the police, or if not before the police. That individual is trained to de-escalate it, and he's not wearing, or he or she is not wearing a uniform. That's authoritative in front of that individual, and de-escalate it to bring it down. What you have now is a person that hasn't having an episode, and then you have two officers with guns drawn screaming. That's not going to be a good ending. Period.
But I've heard plenty of cases that are resolved right now, or at least a few, where officers have been confronted with someone who is obviously maybe sort of suicidal and doing things to get the officers to shoot them.
Right.
And they did not. So it depends on the officer's experience.
Right.
And like I said, I obviously question whether there was enough of that in that situation. And some officers are trained and experienced to know.
Right. I remember the first time I had to deal with an individual that was having an episode, and it does take you back for a minute because there's no rationalizing. There's no, when it's a blank stare. It's a blank stare, and you're trying to get them to relate to anything that you can pull them into, so you can get them to come down and calm down. And one thing I was taught in school was you don't yell. Because the lower you go, the lower they'll come down. And that's one of the things the officers need to learn. Okay, whether you're right or wrong, I don't know. I'm not there, and I'm not an officer. And there's no knife pointing at me, so I don't know. But what I do know is that you don't be yelling. You bring your voice down and use your inside voice to bring the situation down. You have even in a relationship, you and your spouse arguing, you yelling and he yelling, nothing's going to get resolved. But the person that started to get quiet, the other person to get tired and come down, and then they go to communication right there. And that's the point that I was just making for us. I don't know the situation. I just seen it on video like everybody else did. I wasn't the guy. I wasn't Mr. Wallace. I wasn't his parents, and I wasn't the officers. But I am a human being. I am from that community, and I have had similar experience with police officers with guns drawn. And I specialize in surviving a stop. I've been home for 8 years, and I've been stopped 4 times, different occasions, but traffic stuff. You know how you stop and roll, you didn't come to it wasn't nothing crazy, but I also know how to survive the stop. That need to be taught as well. You understand? It need to be a program where black males and females, especially when they're being released from jail, should have to go through as far as a probation or parole period that they have, and surviving the stop. Because right now, a lot of black males, right, is already automatically fighting the cops in their head because they don't like them, right? Especially in a black community, and there's always paired 2 white cops. It's always 2 white cops. It's like, you know what it's like? Right now, if we walked outside and we seen a Native American, even though a Native American was here before anybody, how we don't know where they at? My grandchildren haven't even seen one yet. This was their country, right? Now, this was our area. This was our neighborhood when we was growing up. We knew all the black officers. Heck, they grew up with us. They was able to pull up on the corner and say, man, get off the corner, man. You ain't catching no bus. And we'll laugh. And I said, oh, they be on about 4 o'clock. We gonna get off the corner. It wasn't no guns drawn. Wasn't none of that stuff. They understood that. Even when they got off duty, they go tell your mother, better keep your eye on that boy. He out there tripping. You don't have that no more. There's no love there no more. All you see is in the black community, 2 white officers walking up and down the street.
It's like us against them.
And that's what happens during the stops. So in my mind, I'm already fighting the cop, even though I never even met him. He pulled me over. Now I'm a strong, big black male. What? What you pull me over for? What? He already shaking with the gun.
Right. Well, everybody gets excited during the cops are getting nervous. You're getting nervous. So everybody's nerves sort of go up at that time.
And this goes, but what I'm saying is I make this statement because you have to determine all that. Because this comes, see, you're a judge now. So this comes in front of you. You can't give a personal like, oh, well, no, because it's rules and regulations that you have to follow. Because there's times, I'm quite sure, if it didn't happen, it will happen. You done seen an officer. Now, you done seen plenty of males in your room lying, right? So you're going to see some officers that comes into your courtroom to make the case a little more better, to dress it up, put a tuxedo on the case. And all they had to do is stick to the facts. And you got common sense. You're like, all right, I pulled him over just for running a light, but when he rolled the window down, the smoke killed me. The weed come all out, whatever like that. Okay, could have kept it like that, but all that other stuff, they add to it. And as a judge, you got to see through all that stuff right there. So I say that to say this. Why judges, like, y'all go through so much, but get so little back in return?
Well, I don't know. I love my job. I just was on the bench the other day, and I don't go in every day because of the pandemic and we're limited in our function. But I was on the bench the other day, and I realized I was just thinking about it. I missed it. I miss doing what I do. So I think I hope that most people have at least a corner of what they do and where they love what they do. Right. I mean, I think you have to do that in order to do a good job. I love what I do. It's not always easy. Don't get me wrong, but you know, as an attorney, you're trained also to go through sort of, it's like boot camp,
Right.
going through law school and then becoming an attorney and then practicing as an attorney. So, you know, as a judge, you're an attorney first, and you go through some training. And you sort of live, some attorneys live for the thrill. That's
Right.
why they continue to do what they do. I think as a judge, it becomes a little more control, but, you know, every now and then you get that. But no, I love my job.
Okay. How many, now where you at, right? How many black female judges are there, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I couldn't give you an exact number. I will say that there's about one third of the judges are black, period. And there's about, or let's say there's approximately 100. I think it's between 90 and 100 actually. So we're saying 30 plus are black. And we're going to say on the Court of Common Pleas. We're not talking about
I'm talking about
municipal-
common pleas.
Common Pleas. And out of that 30 plus judges, I think that the women are sort of outnumbering the men right now.
Really?
Yes, black women.
That's because most of the men are in jail.
Listen, how about that? How about that? I mean, you know, we can't deny, and I won't deny,
Right, exactly.
that most of the defendants are black men that I see in court
Right.
every day. And it's funny because one of my white interns, who was a summer intern a couple of years ago, she asked me that question. She was like, well, how do you feel that, you know, most of the people who come in your courtroom are black men on the defendant side? And so I'm so used to it that I don't always think of it as
Right.
something that shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way.
Right.
That's disproportionate. There's something screaming wrong about that, you know, right?
Right.
And so she asked me that. I had to say that, you know, I get used to it, but every now and then you have to really recognize that you have to connect those dots. So
Right.
we have that in our community, then we have these other problems. It's all connected.
Right.
But
So
I think that, just to answer your question,
no,
I'm
go
sorry. I think that black women right now are very electable, and that's also part of it. We have wonderful black male attorneys in our city. A lot of them don't want to run for judge, and black women are women, period, are more electable right now.
From your experience on the bench and seeing how the people in the community is in an uproar right now, as far as with the murderings, and then you have the drugs and overdose like Kensington, all that old crazy stuff. In your experience as a judge and as a black woman, period, in the community, what do you think would be the best solution, if you have one?
A solution to all of our, I definitely don't have a solution to all of our problems. I'll say that. I was encouraged to see, let's see, we're going through a lot right now, right? We just came off of a month where we had the Walter Wallace shooting, we had the elections and all of the uproar about that. And I was very pleased and proud of the city, how the city responded to all of that turmoil. So the city, you know, we had some protests after the Walter Wallace shooting, and rightfully so, because the community is frustrated. But you didn't see I don't think many people got hurt, you know, a few here and there. And then people had to just quickly turn around and use their frustration and go to the polls. And I was happy to see that they did that. And so you have to turn your frustrations into something tangible. You can't just be sitting there being frustrated. It's like making lemonade with lemons, right? And so I think that's what we have to do, because we definitely have lemons. So we got to make lemonade. How we do that, how everyone does that, I can't say exactly, but we have to turn it into something. So if that, you know, if that's going to the polls, if that's getting more involved in structured community programs, because I think our community they're a bit hesitant to get involved with structured programs sometimes and government programs, and they have a little bit of a skepticism, shall I say?
Absolutely.
And so we have to get over that.
Right.
We have to get over that.
It's all in the presentation. I realized, like, when I first started my organization, Gateway to Reentry, and I came through Southwest at Myers. And at first, you know, I was trying to like get people, they was like, they wanted to go play basketball. And and see, here's the thing. The parents will come out real strong when they think their kid can make it to the NBA or the NFL or the major leagues.
Program.
You know, I mean, they'll come out and cheer them on and stuff like that, right? I had a program that was dealing with prevention to keep them from ever going to jail in the first place. And I started this program at first, and for the 4 weeks in a row, I'd had it every Saturday. Not one parent showed up. 4 weeks in a row, not one parent showed up. And one day they had a basketball game out there. And I was sitting there waiting for the door to open, for the parents to come through. And I was sitting there, you know, sending my emails out, whatever. And I never forget it. The guy, he was the janitor there named AJ. And he came by. He said, you're still here, huh? He said, well, you in the wrong place. You need to be out there where they at. And I went out there, and there was a mother out there, and she was cheering her sons on and whatever. And I said to her, I invited you to my program 2 weeks ago. Oh, yeah. But this is the day they had. I said, let me tell you something. He live in an urban community, and he's in a poverty-stricken area. He got a more chance of going to jail than making the NFL. You better get him to my program. I swear. I walked away. 20 minutes later, her, the father, and I guess they just finished up. He came with his cleats on and everything. And she set him right there. And I started teaching him maybe about another 2-3 weeks. It started growing like that. But I had to have that type of conversation. So it's all in your presentation, and you got to be consistent, right? But back to what I was talking about when you said your intern said to you about how do you feel about most of your most of your cases is black, whatever, right? And I know that to be true because I was in the state jail and I was also in the federal jail. And you don't see a lot of white teenagers or young youth. You don't. You got them, but you don't see a lot of them. What you see is a lot of black males, right, and Latinos that really, really, really like fill the jails up. So I know that to be true. Okay. Now, the problem is this. We come from different areas and different things is on the table. You can have a table, but it's always sectioned off. This is for you, this is for you, and this is for you. Right? Now the part that's for you is a lot of booby traps. The part that's for you, the part that's for them, they can just go and grab without something grabbing them and being booby trapped. Right? And then they good to go. It's very rare that they get caught up. And then if they do get caught up, they know somebody that knows somebody that's in position to make sure it don't go as far that it would go with me or your son or daughter, stuff like that. So having said all that, and you being a judge, right? How do you feel about the state of the urban community right now as far as leadership? See, you can answer that because that don't have nothing to do with being a judge. That had everything to do with the mother.
Right? I don't know if that's an easy question, but let me say this. I have to say that I'm not as skeptical as I mentioned as some about the leadership in this city, if that's what you're referring to. I think we have great representation in our government, in our local government. I've been to school in other cities. I went to school in DC. I lived in New York City. I went to school in Atlanta for a little bit. And I think we have great representation here. That being said, we have to hold people accountable regardless of, whether
who's in there.
Right. We have to hold people accountable. And we have to have transparency. We need good leadership. So it doesn't, just because you see somebody who looks like you doesn't mean it's a good leader, right? And so we have to remember that.
Now the plot.
We're not going to go too far down that road, but
no, that's true. That's true.
You have to hold everyone accountable. But I do appreciate the representation and diversity that this city has and shows in its government. I obviously I know a lot of these elected officials personally, but I am proud of a lot of the work that they do.
That's true. I know a lot of them as well. And the only problem I have with politics, period, right, is that you don't have to be intelligent to run for office. You just have to run, okay? And you don't have to have the qualification for the office you're running for. If it's open and you qualify to run, then run, as far as running, right? And there's a lot of people winning office, right, that's not qualified for the position. For what it in details, right? And that's why you have a lot of corruption, you have a lot of mishaps, and you have a lot of dropping the balls and falling through the cracks. And that's why you have Philadelphia right now, literally from the top to the bottom, #1 in poverty out of the more largest major cities. Now, that's crazy. That's under the leadership now of Governor Wolf, because he governs 67 counties, and that's under the leadership of Philadelphia, Mayor Kinney. And now that's not me taking a shot at nobody. That's just a truthful statement. Your mayor is Mayor Kinney. Your governor is Governor Wolf. And under their leadership, because before any one of them ran for office, Philadelphia was not #1 in poverty. How we beat out Baltimore? How we beat out Detroit? And that's what I don't understand. But with that being said, we're going to close out. I want to thank Judge Sierra Thomas Street for coming to Tracey L Fisher, a reentry point of view, unapologetic.